I'm here with Rhode Island Red. She's a little Herreshoff 12 that I've done some work on previously. It's nice to look at the boat out of the water because I haven't really seen it since I've done that work, and it's held up really nicely. And we're not going to do any more work on it really this year, other than we're actually going to look at the bright work and see if I can't make some suggestions about how to proceed, because the boat's got quite a bit of varnish on it. We don't want to strip it. We're not going to take any kind of machine and rough it up with a machine or anything like that. We're going to attack this situation by hand and put a couple coats of varnish on it. We're going to show some of the problems. It's got some runs and how you might get rid of those kind of easily, and some of the dings and nicks and what you might do about that. The first thing we're actually going to do is work on the transom itself. We're going to see if we can't leave the varnish on this transom and do the best thing that we can do to make it look as flat as possible. The boat's got a few problems. The transom has a few problems. In the first place, it's got way too much varnish on it, so it's sagged, and it's got a horizontal texture to it and some vertical sagging and different things, and it's got a few places where there's paint out on top of the varnish. But we want to keep it because we're not going to strip the boat this year. We're going to keep the lettering on it. We're going to try to smooth it up, take all the sags out of it, and we're going to start off using a utility knife blade. And we're just going to take the blade and just scrape it back and forth with a utility knife blade like that. And doesn't that just identify the problem? You can see that the shiny spots are the low spots, and the spots that turn dull like that, those are the tops of all of those, that texture. So we're going to do this quite a bit until we get it almost to disappear completely before we start sanding it, because this will make it nice and flat compared to just sanding it. And this really doesn't make a lot of dust. It's easy enough to do. It takes a little while, but the reason why this thing doesn't dig into the surface is because I'm holding it very loosely in my hands, and when I push it that way, the blade leans over that way, and it's not dangerous to the finish. Then when I pull it this way, it leans over the other way. So it just immediately flips itself back and forth. If I had some kind of a handle on it, I don't think it'd work very well. As a matter of fact, you'd just dig it all up if you had any kind of handle whatsoever. So this is the way we do it. So I'm just moving around here, trying to identify some of the worst spots, and you can see it show up real quick as soon as I scrape over it. And some of the places are going to require a little bit more pressure, but first off, I'm just going to kind of go around the whole place here, the whole area, and see what we come up with. And we've got a pretty bad run over in here. I'm actually going to go across the grain over in here because I'm so close to the end of the boards that that'll help me get it out much faster. Now I'm going to try a different position because that's not working too well for me. Some of it's starting to disappear. See, now I'm going to go this way, like with the grain. To get into details, especially like near another finish, you kind of put two hands on the blade because you can control it a lot easier. And I might even only work it in one direction because that seems to make it easier for me too. I'm trying to get this run right near the edge, right near the end. Now if you look here, you can see that this is the part that I'm scraping. And the shiny spot is the lower spot that's alongside of it. I'm scraping up on top and on top here. And when I scrape enough of it off here, then pretty soon I'll start to remove some here, and this will end up looking like this. Then I know I'm done. Yeah, it's a lot better there. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just got to be considerably better than it is. Okay, I'm just going to show you a little spot here along the gunnel on the port side. It's got a little bit of problem here. It's got some very loose varnish here up on the deck, and I don't want to just pluck that right off there, so I'm actually entertaining gluing that back down there with some epoxy glue, and then maybe flooding this area with a little bit of epoxy sealer before I varnish it. And I think the thing to do with it after that's glued back down is to tape it off around it And it should be over the course of a week or so dabbed many, many times with varnish until it builds up a little bit. And then remove the tape and try to sand it down without sanding away the varnish all the way around it, because that just makes it thinner and thinner and thinner and becomes more of a problem. So I think the thing to do is fill it and fill it and fill it until it's filled. Now we're on the starboard side back aft, and this is the shear plank right here, and you can see that it's got some runs in the varnish right in here. It's got a lot of varnish on it. And we're going to keep all that varnish, but I want to scrape that run right out. So I've got my razor scraper blade here again, and I'm going to scrape it vertically, because if I don't, I'm sure that I would dig the corners of the razor blade into the varnish and just make a mess. So what I'm going to do is hold it with two hands, and I'm going to use a little momentum, and I'm going to actually land up above it and then scrape right through it like that. I'm only going to scrape in one direction, and it doesn't happen instantly, but it does work really, really nicely. Now that's the area that I've been working on, and you can clearly see that the run is just completely gone. The rest of the varnish is all there. It's flat as a pancake. All it requires is a little bit of sanding, and she's ready to varnish. Now we're going to do the whole boat that way. I'm going to move aft here. I'm going to actually try scraping in both directions here, because I think if you can do that, you go even faster. Look at that, that worked out really well right in there. Nice. And look at the runs in here. They're going to be a little softer inside, so they get a little bit more difficult. Maybe sandpaper's the way to go. That one's in such a line, in such a perfect line. That one's hard to get. I mean, that was so irregular in there. Just so, now it's so flat. You can hardly feel it when you go across it with the blade. Okay, we've done quite a bit of work, and we've kept it all below the seam in the transom right here. And I'm going to just feel it here and see how it feels to me. And I'm going to show you something about that. Now, I'm going to reach out and feel it with my fingers. Now, I don't feel it this way with my elbow bent or my fingers across in front of me, because I get very little movement. That's one problem. But the other problem is it seems to affect your nerves. When you hold your arm out straight like this, you can just really feel if it's fair or what's going on. That's the way to do it like that.